Welcome to people that are not there. John is in from Bermuda. Hey, John, welcome. Nadia's here from Jamaica. Hey, Nadia. Thanks for
Good
joining.
evening, good evening. Welcome, and thank you for joining us at the roundtable. We are excited that you are here this evening. I am Leilani Williams.
And I'm Julia Hall.
And we're excited that you are joining us tonight at the roundtable. We have a great discussion tonight where we'll be talking about college and Christianity, how to maintain your faith on campus. It's going to be very interesting conversation, but before we introduce our guest tonight, please make sure you hit that thumbs up and like this video. Make sure you subscribe to the TKC YouTube channel so that you can see all the new episodes, and hit that bell so you don't miss a new episode every Wednesday night here on the TKC YouTube channel.
Well, hello. Welcome, everybody. Lady Leilani, as you said, tonight we have a really interesting conversation. It's about college and Christianity and what that looks like. And so I kind of thought about my experience, my undergrad experience when I was at Rhode Island College.
Mm.
And I was a believer going into when I transferred to Rick. And I did, because I was a Christian, I did seek out, groups, right? Bible study groups or what have you. I stumbled upon one. But I have to say, there really wasn't a whole lot, right, offered for us, for those of us that believe in the faith and are walking this thing out. And, it wasn't a whole lot offered on Rhode Island College campus. And again, I'm just speaking about Rhode Island College. Right?
Yeah.
But there wasn't a whole lot. But as far as like my own personal walk, I did okay. I didn't get involved in a lot. I think for me, being an older student kind of, and then also too not living on campus, that played a really big part in it. Because I'll be honest, I think if I lived on campus, I think my walk would have maybe been a little harder because I'm in the throes every day of college life, meeting new people. And of course you want to fit in, right?
Right.
So I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. But given my personality, it's not hard for me to want to fit in. So, I'm a social butterfly. So I'm like, let's go over here, let's go over there. So I think for me, had I lived on campus, that would have played a big part. And I think that would have brought on some challenges.
Yeah.
Trying to walk out my faith.
Yeah.
And what about you?
Well, it's interesting. I had two different college experiences. Mm-hmm. So my first college experience as an undergrad, I was not walking in faith, and was definitely backslidden. Mm-hmm. However, my second part of my undergrad, because I went to college, did 2 years, and then took a break, and then went back and did the rest of my bachelor's degree. So my second half of my undergrad, I was saved. Mm-hmm. And again, similar to what you were talking about, it was a little easier for me because I was not on campus. Mm-hmm. So when I wasn't on campus, I was fully surrounded by people who were like-minded and walking in faith. And so it was easier for me to walk out my faith. Mm-hmm. So it was interesting how I've had two different dynamics, but it wasn't necessarily challenged by campus life. Mm-hmm. When I was walking in faith. So to get into our conversation more tonight, we do have a guest with us, which I am super excited to bring on. This bright young lady did her undergrad at Brown University and is currently an L1 law student, first year at Columbia. I had the pleasure of getting to know her while she was a student at Brown because she did attend the church, and I'm excited to bring her on, Kiana Phillips. Welcome this evening, Kiana. Hey, Kiana.
Hey.
There she is. Hey,
How
Kiana.
are you?
Great. How are y'all doing?
Good. So glad that you're here with us tonight. We're excited to have you.
Yes, I'm glad to be here. It's been a while, so great meeting you.
Yes, it has. So listen, Kiana, we just, like Lady Leilani said, just kind of understand, what this whole, process is of college and Christianity, right? Understanding it from, your perspective. So question, were you saved before you came to campus or while on campus?
Yes, I was. I got, I had to get baptized a few times in my, life, like childhood, teen years and stuff like that. But I definitely had a, But I had that like final come to Jesus, like really started that relationship with Jesus permanently, like in high school. So yeah.
Mhm. I was going to ask, how did you come, into salvation? Can you share a little bit about that?
Oh yeah. I definitely like my family's history of going to church and being involved in the church, yeah, kind of wavers. But especially like from my childhood, but when my mom left this really toxic relationship, she and I moved out, and my I'm the youngest of my siblings, so it was just her and I. And then she started going to this church, and um that church, like, I don't know, they had like a really robust youth program. So I just got into it more, and I would see the way my mom would worship God. And like, I was like, okay, like maybe God really is real, and just kind of learning more in Bible study and my relationships with other people at the church. Just kind of, it just kind of convinced me, and I wanted to like start that relationship with God. Like I said, there were times in my childhood, depending on where my family was at in the church, like maybe I would and maybe I wouldn't. But it was when I was in high school when I finally like made that decision. And I would say even then I was still very I was acknowledging Jesus, but I wasn't really like trying to live for him. And I was
Mhm.
doing a lot of, I'm not one to like be peer pressured, so it wasn't like a party thing, but I was definitely into like just doing whatever I wanted to do, a lot of sexual immorality, a lot of just things that were just on my own line of whatever I wanted. But I made friends, especially a certain friend who really encouraged me to like take God more seriously. And as we got closer, that really helped me like really start going to Bible studies diligently, like not just because my mom was taking me, but because I really wanted to learn about God, and I really wanted to have God in my relationship with other people. So that was probably like later in high school, like when I was like 17 or so. Yeah.
Nice. So
Awesome.
when you got to campus, what were some of the challenges you think you faced in trying to maintain and walk out that faith that you discovered in high school?
Um, I have to be honest with you. I think so going to my school, like it's very the culture is like the culture of the overall school is very like secular. There's all these philosophers who think all of these things about God and the universe, whatever. But being Black definitely makes it like at Brown, there's a really strong Black community. So, most of us like believe in God and are going to talk about God. And like it's not like it's no one's gonna shame you for talking about God. They'll like invite you to something like, they'll tell you there's churches or, and even when I first got to Brown, I was like, okay, I need to find the Black Christian group. Like that was in my head at the activities fair, which I later found out like I shouldn't have expected because that group was very new. And as Bishop Jeff would tell you at Brown, the Black Christian groups have been like supported and then taken away and supported and taken away, have a long history of like being kind of undermined by the school. So that was like something I shouldn't have necessarily expected, but the Black community at Brown has always, I think, like had some sort of faith and like supported others. So there were plenty of other Black students who told me about TKC, who told me about like other churches that were around and like were doing their own. Like I said, there was a group there that had been established for the past couple years since I had been there, and they were like getting more and more organized. So like I just got involved with them right when I got to campus because I knew that was something important to me. And like I stayed with that group and like became a leader in it pretty quickly. So I just didn't find it hard because like I said, I was surrounded by other Black people who most of whom like care about God. And even if they're not themselves going to Bible study or something, like it's not like they're ever putting you down, and they want to hear about your
Mhm.
experience. So yeah, I would say in my particular situation, it wasn't too difficult.
Yeah.
That's good. Thank you for sharing that. That's
Yeah.
good. So, question, right? So, when you were on campus,
Mhm.
meeting new people, away from home,
Mhm.
did you feel pressure to fit in? And if you did, right, how did you manage to overcome that pressure to stay true to your faith journey?
Oh yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, like I said, again, I'm sorry, I'm not a peer pressure type of person.
Mhm.
So like I really and at the school, there's so many different things you could get involved in, and a lot of different, even like things specifically for Black people. There's a Black pre-law group, Black Christian group, like Black pre-med group, like all the different diasporas. Like there's just like there's so many different things that are social, and then things that are like more career oriented that have to do with, like think tutor for refugee kids, tutor in the prisons, like all of these different things you can get involved in. So I really never, like, I don't know, there was just a lot of encouragement to just make your own path. And, people are really supportive. People aren't usually like, even non-Black people are like, that's cool. You do this and you do that. You do this and that. Like, it's not a big deal. So I would say I just didn't really feel a whole lot of pressure in general, because I just kind of found a lot of like community that were really supportive. And I don't want to paint Brown as this like utopia or something, but just especially being surrounded by a whole lot of Black people and like a lot of people who share my interests in as far as like social justice and things like that. I didn't really try to go other places where maybe different types of students would be pressuring me to do different types of things. Yeah.
You talked about that there was there was a Christian group on campus that you became involved in and then started to lead. What caused you to want to lead that organization? Was it that you just felt it was time to step up, or was there you wanted more organization to come to what they were trying to do and gather people? Like, what was your motivation to decide I'm going to step up and lead the Christian group on campus?
Oh, that's a great question. Yeah, I think because it was just a couple years old, there weren't too many leaders. It really only had one main leader, Taylor Ross, who also went to King's Cathedral.
Yeah.
And I think she did a great job of trying to build the group. And it's very like, come on, guys, like we need more leaders. Like, we're trying to like, be more established and connect with and see like what other Black Christian groups at other schools are doing and see what we can do like with them or like with other Christian groups, and like just trying to, develop the group more. It wasn't even so much of like, oh, there's something I see that I don't like, but it was just like, oh, like I want the group to continue, and like I want us to be able to like expand to maybe other people that aren't in the group yet. Like maybe there's some people who don't necessarily know about it yet because it's just so new or whatever it is. So it it was just, I think it was more of the fact that it was just a newer group. And I wanted to keep it going because it was doing great things.
That's awesome. I think it's interesting stepping up, especially as a freshman on campus, to lead the organization. Did you feel or ever experience any backlash from maybe some of the other organizations on campus or non-Christian groups towards that Christian organization?
I would say I don't think I felt any backlash for the group necessarily, especially because a lot of critiques about Christianity that like come out of like the injustices like in the things that seem like hypocritical about Christianity when it comes to like social justice or things like that. So I think, and a lot of times that comes from all sort of people, but it's a predominantly white campus. So I think a lot of times when people at the school looked at the Black Christian group specifically, they like they can't really say anything because we're Christian, but like you can't say, like, if your critique is about Blackness, about social justice, how are you gonna like critique like this group of Black people like who come from a history of like causing social justice, like motivating social justice in this country? You know what I mean? Like everyone knows Martin Luther King. So I just think it's like, it's not to say that like, oh, Black Christians are like the perfect example of being a socially just Christian or whatever. But I think as far as the outside campus goes, there wasn't a whole lot of like backlash against Black Christians in particular, or our group. But I would say there were definitely times in classes where people would critique like Jesus himself or Christianity itself. And, there are definitely, especially like philosophy classes or something where people are saying these arguments, or I was on the debate team my first semester or two, and people would say these arguments that are so antithetical to Christ, so antithetical to God and his character. I remember there being someone arguing about like how it should be legalized for like men to abandon their children, like as though it's not already, but also just like supporting that. Like, yeah. So there were some things that I just kind of found stomach turning. And I also had to just, like, again, it was helpful to talk to like other people in my community about how to deal with that, because like I said, like they were there and I was getting connected to them. So, like, and having more of those hard conversations with each other, like letting that be a Bible study topic about like what God has to say about these hard discussions and things like that was always really helpful and kind of prepared me better for those interactions with people who don't necessarily share my faith or might critique Christianity, and how I can like have a nice conversation and still not be swayed necessarily, but also hopefully have
Mhm.
a positive impact on them, like Jesus calls all of us to do, in terms of maybe inspiring them to get closer to God for themselves as well. So yeah.
Nice.
Wow. I like the point that you made about not being swayed, right? Because, well, again, you're away from, your upbringing, away from your family, your strength, and then you're in this culture where everything is totally new, even the people. So you're being introduced to new things, new events, parties, whatever else is going on campus, right?
Yeah.
But I really like how you spoke about not being swayed. I think if you're strong in your faith, you cannot be swayed, but if you're not strong in your faith, it could definitely happen, right? Because everything around you is screaming something totally, totally different, whole different culture. So that was good. I thank you for bringing that out. So I have a question for you. How did you find the King's Cathedral?
Oh, it's like I said, the
Mhm.
same day I went to that activities fair and found the Black Christian group, I was like, so where are we going to church? And Taylor was like, yeah, we're going to King's Cathedral on Sunday. So that was that. That's where
I know that you had talked about how you haven't really experienced sort of backlash or people coming against your faith necessarily on campus, but how was it recruiting people to come to the Bible study? I know that being on campus for your first time, it's easy to kind of sway from your faith when you don't have your parents and the structures of home there to really keep you focused and keep you going to church. So, how did you find recruiting people? Was it easy? Was it difficult to get people to come because they were kind of off doing their own thing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the word vulnerability stands out to me, because I think a lot of times when people are skeptical, they think like, oh, this is going to be full of perfect people who think they're perfect, or like judgmental people. But I'll say like my first Bible study, at my first Bible study with that group, and that's like, it was mainly like a Bible study group at the time. Like that's pretty much what we meet every Monday to do. And then there's like extra events like here and there. So my first Bible study, everyone's like, you introduce yourself, you say your name, your class year, and like why you're here. Because it's the first one of the year. And I like said, like, I'm Kiana, I'm a first year, and like I'm here because and sorry, this is like, I don't know if you guys might have to edit this out, but I was like, I'm a hoe in recovery. Like I just want to love Jesus and like be on the right track and like whatever else. And like I was just honest about like where
Yeah,
I'm
that's
coming
good.
from and like why, like God's important to me. Like, listen, I'm not perfect. Like if I don't like keep staying with Jesus, like I'll be out in these streets, you know. And I want to I want to focus more on him and like doing his will in the earth and supporting others rather than like getting caught up in my own mess. So, and when I said that, of course the room was like, whoa, like this. So then like for the next like year or two, like even people who, because the first meeting, that's when you have the most people there ever.
Yeah.
So people would see me who hadn't been coming for a while, but they'd be like, oh, like you're the girl who said you were a hoe at Bible study, like wow, da da da. And I'd be like, it was always a good like segue, like, yeah, you should come back, or like, it's cool, like, we're all hoes, like, like whatever it is. Like it's not like where I'm inviting you to like make you be a certain way, or because I think that I'm better or something like that. It's like we're all here to just like be transformed more and more into Jesus' likeness. So, and I think like that goes to other things that we would do. Like we would collaborate with other groups on campus and do things like text a toasty, where people could like send a question about God or Christianity to this phone number, and we would come with a either like some sort of toasted sandwich, either grilled cheese or like a grilled Nutella sandwich. And there would be different versions of this with different foods that we would do at different times of the year. But we'd go to wherever they were, maybe they're the library, their dorm, whatever, and we'd like, talk to them about their question. It's not like we're giving you an exact answer, but it's like, this is, a conversation, and like God does have something to say about this. So, and sometimes it would be really, silly questions or not, but it was always an opportunity to kind of like at least encourage people to think more about God, and, let them know that this is a place you can come to if you want to continue having these conversations. Like at our Bible study group, or like maybe a different group's Bible study group, if it works better for your like culture or for your schedule or whatever. So I would say those are kind of both of those, like, I think again involve vulnerability and just like opening up to have like those tough conversations with people and being honest about like, I'm not Jesus, I just know that I need him.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. I have a quick question about, I know First Lady asked about how did you acquire more people into the group. I would be curious to know, once people are in the group, and like you said, we're not perfect, right? I mean, being out here doing what we do, how did you, if you could just give me an example of, let's say maybe, you come across another student, a young lady, right, who is a recovering, let's say, I don't know, anything, right? You can put anything in there. But she needs help. She really wants Jesus, and she's, really, trying to figure this walk out. How would you go about encouraging her in the culture that you're in, right? That college culture, again, away from family, away from that strength, right? That nucleus, and now her new family, if you will, it's her new peers. How would you go about encouraging her to maintain the faith, to keep the faith, and just to kind of, walk this thing out with Jesus?
Yeah, that's a really
In
good.
other words, not to fall back, not to backslide.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think I always would just start with listening to her story, and seeing like where she's coming from and what kind of conflicts she's like encountering and her walk right now. And, just going to God with her about seeking that, whether we just like sit and pray together or just encourage her and tell her, like, as much as I'm listening to you, like God is listening to you too. And like he wants to hear from you, not because he doesn't know, but because he's like your father and he cares, and he wants you to like bring that to him so that he can like take care of it, and you can, listen back to him. It could be a conversation, because, I think the biggest thing about Christ is that he opens up a relationship for us to have, so it's like you're not just like saying these prayers and hoping they go through, or like asking for all this stuff. It's like you just get to be with God, and you get to like experience him, and just listen to whatever, just one next step he's telling you to take to go deeper in your relationship with him. That can be going to Bible study, like in our next meeting, but it could be like just opening your Bible in that moment that you're listening to him and like reading something. It could be, calling that person that you need forgiveness from, or that you need to forgive still. It could be just anything that God's like calling you to. And I think when you take that one little step of faith, it really helps you to keep growing in your faith and take the next steps that he's taking. He's not calling us to perfection. He's calling us to him, who's already perfect. If we just rely on him more and more, then that's like all he's asking, or all he's really commanding. It's not a request, but still it's not that hard to do if we just start trying. Just the one little thing to just listen and trust and obey. Yeah.
I think that's beautiful. Even in what you were saying about listening and what you talked about earlier, vulnerability, I think those two are so important in trying to demonstrate our faith to other people with our life. So often people talk about how they assume Christians are going to be perfect, and being vulnerable to share that we're not perfect, we're imperfect just like everyone else, but we're trying to walk out this journey in a different way, right? Than most people. When you were on campus, did you feel pressure, or either from yourself or from others, sort of to be perfect in your example to others? Especially your class was so, I don't want to say Christian oriented, but you had a huge group of people that were coming to the cathedral who were involved in Christian activities. Did you ever feel like pressure to be perfect, or make sure that you were always doing or living up to people's expectations of what a Christian should look like or be?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I feel I could feel that. I think as the years go on, especially just for me in particular, being a leader, and being older, it's like I'm kind of responsible for more people. So then you start wondering, like, what to. You have to be like wise about what you're like talking to people about. I don't want to encourage anybody to do like make the same mistakes I did, but I want it to be, just trusting God to say whatever needs to be said, and whether that's like a moment of vulnerability or maybe just like not sharing everything to everyone right there. Which, yeah, it's like a hard thing, but when you're leaning on the Holy Spirit, you can it'll give you the words to say. But I think definitely just as I went on, and especially like experiencing different challenges, like, okay, now I'm not so tempted to live this whole life I used to live. Not to say that I didn't backslide a little bit that first year, let's be honest, but like, it's that's got less and less tempting. But now it's like I fall into like this like meritocracy environment, and I start putting my worth on my grades and my assignments and my academic achievements or whatever, rather than like my value in God that like Jesus already said that I have, or things like that. So it's like different things that are a little bit more difficult to recognize as sin, because sometimes you're even in like in often Christian environments, like they're saying like, yeah, just go to school and like get a good job and like whatever else, and that's definitely what Jesus wants for you, or like, and it's like, well, that's like, where does the Bible say that? Like maybe do something else. So I think sometimes it's just like it's harder to recognize certain things as like idolatry that I'm putting over God. And I got to a point, especially in my senior year, with just other things that was going on, like how to grieve, how to like, achieve all of these things. And I wasn't really like, it was harder for me to be honest that I was getting depressed and that I was, just like having a hard time. And I'm a senior now, and I'm realizing that like there's hardly anyone left who remembers that first year me who said I was a hoe in recovery. Like they don't, like, I'm starting to realize that people think I'm like just doing so great, and that's not true, and that's okay. Like,
Right.
be honest about like the struggles, and God wants us to be honest about the things we're struggling with, even when they seem kind of like, why would you struggle with that, or like that's an okay thing to be in or whatever. So I think, and I don't really know, I can't tell you that I dealt with that in the greatest way, but it's just something I started recognizing as I like went on in the years. And by the end of my senior year, I did retell that story to all the like younger people in the room, like, I'm actually not perfect, and I actually do struggle, y'all. And like, and I don't want you to, go through the same things I did. I don't want you to think your worth depends on your grades, or, these other kind of mindsets I built up while I was in college. So I hope that answers your question. I'm sorry.
No, it did. I'm curious
Yeah.
to know though, like, where did you find the courage to sort of be vulnerable in that way and say, I am going through something, or I am depressed? I'm sure there's some young Christians on campus, hopefully watching now, thinking about, I am struggling, but I don't know how to communicate that without people thinking I'm lacking faith. So how did you manage to get over that and really be vulnerable with how you're actually feeling and work through that with the people around you?
Oh, that's such a good question. I think the word relationship is standing out to me. Like, I would talk with other people and realize they were going through similar things. And then I'm like, well, wait, we're all going through this. Like, God obviously has something to say about this. Like, and, as I'm going through it, I'm like, okay, well, why would I keep like the things God's telling me about this to myself? Like, I should also, be honest and see how other people are dealing with it, or like, share something that He gave me to share with them. It's not just me. So thinking again about, the calling Jesus has on us to like to be in community and to love one another. Like, I want to show love by, being honest that you're not alone and I'm not alone, and that like, let's seek God together and what He wants us to do with these. It won't be the same for all of us, but just like, let's get in that, habit of going to Him about this stuff. So yeah, I definitely think just talking to others, and seeing that it wasn't just me, and like really it motivated me to open up more about it and like see God with them about it.
That's awesome.
It's good. So if you were talking to young freshmen now on campus, how would you encourage them? What are some tips that you might give them to maintain their faith, either as they're heading out off to college or while they're currently on college campus?
I think being free is really important. Like
Mhm.
being free to whatever new ways God might want to show himself to you. You might be used to experiencing your faith community on a Sunday service at like every week or something like that. But if you're in a space where that's like not really possible, or you're not really feeling welcome by the people, like the communities that offer Sunday services in your area, then maybe it has to look a little differently. Maybe you will have to get on Zoom with some people, or maybe you will have to
Mhm.
go to the student group Bible study every week instead of, there might be a worship night that comes. Like, I think just like, yeah, just getting free in the way that God wants you to experience him. And also just, going deeper in your own personal walk with him and in your own personal relationships. Like, building your faith community, your church, because that's what a church is. It's not just like
Yeah.
this service of performance, it's a
Right.
community. So just, getting that one person who also says that they're Christian and that you're kind of feeling, just go deeper with them and like ask about how they came to Christ. Ask the same questions we're talking about now. Ask about their experience with God, and like, see God with them, read the Bible with them, ask those tough questions that y'all have been wondering about for yourself or for society or whatever. I think that's what develops just those relationships. And when you're free to like do that and not tie yourself to whatever experiences or relationships you might have had in the past, and just trust that God will use everything that, that he's put before you in this place that he's put you in, then I think it'll be much, much harder to wrap your mind around. Like, it kind of reminds me of, I was reading the story of Elijah in First Kings, and how he like, he was used to God like sending down the fire and like doing all these grand miracles. And then when that wasn't happening, it's like, oh, he's running away. He's in these mountains, like, and God's like kind of showing him these new ways. Like, there's new people I want to put in your life. There are still Christians there. Like, there are still people who believe in me and worship me. All these people who haven't bowed down to Baal. And I want you to connect with them. And like, I want you to support them and not be supported by them. So I think it's just so important to remember you're not alone, and like, you're free to experience God by yourself and with others in whatever ways he's giving you to do it.
Awesome.
That's great. Thank you. We're so grateful for you being here with
Yes.
us on
Yes.
the roundtable. Before we go, I like to end all our chats with rapid fire questions. They're simple questions, whatever come to your mind. It's not difficult. Don't worry, it's not written in stone.
Okay.
So, what is your favorite word?
My favorite word? I'm so cheesy, but I guess love is my favorite word. Oh, that's so cheesy.
It's a good word. It's a good word. What sound do you love?
Sound. I love the sound of, I think I think like the sizzling of like fajitas, when you're at a restaurant, like you ordered that sizzling dish, like it's coming to you. Like, I really like that sound.
That is awesome. What sound do you hate?
What sound do I hate? I think, well, living in New York City, I've come to really hate the sound of sirens. But you always say a prayer. You always say a prayer that they're okay. It's like,
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I know that you're studying to become a lawyer. So other than being a lawyer, what other profession would you be interested in pursuing?
ooh. I don't know. This sounds weird, but sometimes I just imagine, like, what if I could just be like a cleaner? Like, sometimes I fantasize about doing like something that's kind of opposite of being a lawyer, where you can just like do your own thing and just clean, maybe not like bathrooms and toilets. You know what I mean? Like, clean up like dust stuff, or like like organize it just all day long. Like, I think I'd be so happy.
That's awesome. Well, Kiana, thank you so much for
Yes,
joining
thank
us here
you.
at the roundtable. We will be praying for you and hope everything goes well with you in law school. And we can't wait to see you in person real soon.
I know.
Thank you so much. I hope to see y'all soon too. Praying everything goes well. And thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. Well, thank
Yeah.
you all for joining us here at the Roundtable. Please make sure that you join us here every Wednesday night at 7:30 p.m. Make sure that you check us out next week for a brand new episode. And we'll see you next week.
Yeah.
Thanks
Bye,
for joining
everybody.
us.